OnlyFans. It's a word we've all heard at some point in this day and age. Our minds flash to that iconic blue-titled website with breasts and buttocks strewn about. The nature of such a platform has always been controversial, but one OnlyFans star would trade controversy for infamy by causing more than one bodily fluid to flow. Unless you're into more obscure sexual acts, the last thing you would associate a porn star or an OnlyFans star with is blood. And yet, in the case of Courtney Clenney, what would start off as a promising career in the adult entertainment industry would end with her bound and shackled, and not in the way she'd like. Clenney, 26, had been in a relationship with Christian Obumseli for 2 years prior to what would be a heartbreaking end to such a relationship. They had their fights, their resolutions, their ups and downs, and would usually come out strong. 2 years together is nothing to scoff at, and with all that time to develop and grow together, you would think something as awful as this wouldn't have occurred in the first place. But there was an underlying darkness behind the lovers' doors. Many described their relationship with terms such as tempestuous and combative due to various contributing factors. Obumseli was a cryptocurrency day trader and investor, using the fluctuating online markets to provide an income to the pair. Clenney, however, had taken to online pornography as a form of income collection via the website OnlyFans, a platform where sexual content can be provided in exchange for a monthly subscription. These methods of financial activity aren't the most stable, however, and with economic issues bearing down, the duo would undoubtedly be tense and stressful at the time of this occurrence. Clenney and Obumseli would in 2022 move into their own home together, but this move would not be without screams and tears. It was reported by their at the time new neighbours that the couple would argue back and forth at random times, usually ending with the sounds of crashing and breaking. It was also reported by security that various recordings existed of Clenney initiating physical violence towards Obumseli, ranging anywhere from hair pulling all the way to full-blown punches. With both these occurrences being of regular nature, the couple was soon faced with an eviction notice. With these problems occurring more frequently, the couple would find themselves separating temporarily a fair few times, with one instance involving Obumseli being forcibly kicked out of the house by Clenney and not returning until Clenney's visiting mother was finished staying at the apartment. Upon returning to the fold, Obumseli and Clenney were already back at odds, with this argument escalating to the point that the authorities were involved. Upon investigation, it was found that this femme fatale was highly inebriated from various substances, causing a catalyst in terms of her vicious actions. It was found that Obumseli had left the house in order to obtain food for the couple, both due to general hunger but also as a means of reconciliation regarding the argument. However, upon returning to their place of residence, Clenney's violent urges would kick in, and as yet another argument began, it would ultimately be their last. Clenney would proceed to at first beat and berate Obumseli, as was the norm, but from here, blood would spill as Clenney would go to stab Obumseli several times, particularly in the chest, with the wound appearing in a downward thrust of forceful origin. A 911 call would then take place where Clenney's voice would be drowned out by Obumseli's screams of pain, stating he was dying and that he had lost feeling in his arm. Clenney would respond with an apology, but whether this was sincere or not remains undisclosed. Upon investigating the situation, it was found that Obumseli's wounds was centred around the chest area, with extreme indication that this was of a forceful downward push with a knife, leading to damage in the nerves in the arm. It wouldn't be long before the classic sleazebag defence lawyer would come to her aid in the form of Frank Preto. Preto would insist that this was a deserved and justified action, claiming that Obumseli was in fact the abusive party of the relationship, as well as the instigator of any and all conflicts during their time together. He would claim that Clenney was merely acting in self-defence, and would many times claim the evidence is inaccurate, particularly video surveillance footage which clearly proves Clenney's actions and her guilt. Preto claimed that Obumseli was a manipulator and narcissist in every other word he could throw into this case. Despite this scumbag's desperate attempts to clear Clenney's blood-stained name, Clenney herself would plunge her foot in hot water, as her recount to the authorities of what had transpired was full of holes and inaccurate in a multitude of ways. She would report that the physical element of the argument had begun with Obumseli, claiming first that he slammed her into the wall without choking her, only to turn around and state that he did in fact choke her. She also insisted that the knife wound found on Obumseli was due to her throwing the knife, which forensic reporters denied, stating that such a wound was impossible without directly forcing it in. These inaccurate and fallible claims would do Clenney no justice, no matter how much her serpent of a lawyer would hiss and writhe. Upon questioning, the couple's friend groups would go on to take Obumseli's side, stating that Clenney was always the abuser and never the other way around. They reported that several times there were moments where Clenney would assault Obumseli physically, with him suffering silently. Obumseli's family would weigh in, stating that he was a good man who was raised right, with morality and integrity never being compromised by this man. They would also go on to explain their opinion that Clenney's guilt was only being doubted due to her privilege as a white woman, and that Obumseli's death was entirely on her. Clenney would be charged with first-degree murder and to this day remains behind bars awaiting her full trial, with bond denied and consequences laid upon her. In cases of domestic violence, we always assume the usual, a big, gruff, angry man and a defenceless young woman. And while this is often the case, it's important to remain open-minded because situations like these occur more often than you think.